Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. And welcome to The Roads with Belle. Today is October 2nd, and we're going down the roads to your questions on Trump's shutdown and Hegseth's pep rally. We got absolutely flooded by questions about Hegseth's speech. So, we're going to go through a bunch that I think answer most people's questions. Okay, so our first question. Was the lack of applause a sign that the generals didn't agree with what was being said? The military is supposed to be an apolitical force. They're in uniform. They can't show approval or disapproval of partisan activities. Since the whole thing was ridiculously partisan, they maintained military bearing. That being said, the absolute silence that occurred at the end, you could read into that a little bit. Next. I know you're going to be asked about the stuff he got wrong. Is there anything you agree with? Yes. And it's funny because it's something I never experienced myself. There's a training technique called a shark attack. It's when multiple instructors are screaming in your face and saying conflicting or random things. It's incredibly high stress. Even though I never experienced it, I, unlike Hegseth, trust the opinions of those in that field. 100%, and I mean that literally. Every single combat arms combat vet said it was important, that it helped them filter out the noise. For a long time, I just thought, okay, this helps them focus on hitting the other guy first. Then I was told a story by a guy who was in a lengthy running fight on a city street where both combatants and civilians were present. It was intense. When it was over, nobody had more than one magazine left. He said it was more important for filtering out who not to shoot in chaotic situations. Not everybody going through basic needs that. Personally, I think everybody coming out of basic should know how to do a needle decompression, apply a tourniquet, and a chest seal. Most will never need it. If the cost of making soldiers more effective and saving civilian lives is recruits getting a shark attack, so be it. That being said, I think the first 100-yard thing is a good intro right off the bus. So let's do that and then do the shark attacks afterward. Why are people calling Hegseth a slammer? This took me a minute. They're not calling him a pog like from the 90s. They're calling him a pogue, which is infantry slang for people other than grunt. It's not a nice term. Moving on. How do you think the generals will react being told if you don't like it, resign? Meh. They're generals. They've been in a long time. They've all experienced commanders they didn't agree with before. I don't expect a lot of turnover from this statement or speech. But there might be some if they actually try to force these changes too quickly. Okay. Trump said, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military. How do you think the brass will react to that? Laughter, mostly. The idea that what's happening in Portland is somehow comparable to a war zone, or that it would be useful for training is laughable. There is no part of this little made-for-TV moment that told those generals and senior enlisted that this administration doesn't understand the realities of modern conflict more than that. What skill are they going to develop or hone retaking a single block from moderately rambunctious demonstrators? There's no overlap there. Trump actually said, quote, Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone. I get a call from the liberal governor. Sir, please don't come in. We don't need you. I said, well, unless they are playing false tapes. This looked like World War II. Your place is burning down. I mean, you must be kidding. Spoiler alert. Yes, it seems like Trump was watching false clips. We have a video from 3 weeks ago. I'll put down below that shows he was watching old clips. A little context for this next one. Hegseth rambled about DEI because, of course he did. That led to this question. I work at a university. Do soldiers not know they're all DEI? Most don't know that until after they leave. Veteran status falls under DEI. When you check your veteran status on an application, you're likely becoming a DEI hire or admission. That isn't something that most really understand until they leave the military. Next. Given the context of the enemy within, removing the rules of engagement, does that include the Geneva Conventions? Using our cities as training grounds, having all the generals gathered just before the government shuts down? Is it time to do another "We're not headed for a martial law" video? Not really. Nothing has significantly changed, other than military brass is now more irritated with the administration than they were before. Okay, will soldiers get paid during the government shutdown? Nope, not on time. They'll get back pay eventually. Going back to the previous question about the government shutdown, ordering something demoralizing and unpopular while also not paying the troops isn't a good move. Will they actually implement this stuff? I learned from this channel during the last Trump term that the military is very slow to implement things. If they're ordered to implement the changes, they will begin work implementing them. But as Hegseth said, some of them are fat and slow. It might take some time, but they wouldn't dare disregard an order. Why does he hate beards? Because it's about aesthetics. He screams lethality, 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 and then rants about beards. Tell me what shaving has to do with lethality. It seems like it's just something to whine about and a way to filter out black troops who are more likely to have a shaving waiver. Do you think most vets feel the way Senator Duckworth does? That seems to be what my social media says, but I don't know if I'm in an echo chamber. So, for context, the senator said, quote, "Well, I think it shows how weak he is as a Secretary of Defense, right? This is the kind of bluster you see. The people in the military who are truly deadly are the ones who are the most quiet. And what you've got here is a Secretary of Defense who failed as an Army officer. I mean, he's the least qualified Secretary of Defense in history. We've got a 5-time draft dodger for a president. This whole thing was an ego stroke for them to be able to stand up in front of a bunch of flag officers. And at the end of the day, it did nothing to improve the readiness of our military. And if anything, it wasted millions of taxpayer dollars by flying all of these flag officers into Washington, D.C., when they should have been out training and preparing their troops for battle. There's a large portion of the vet population that feels this, but there are some who agree with at least pieces of what he said. I think most people, if they were being honest, would admit the whole meeting was wildly inappropriate, incredibly inefficient, and could have been handled via email. But then there wouldn't be social media clips. Okay, now a few shutdown questions. Are they really going to fire a bunch of people because we had a shutdown? Do they just hate America? A lawsuit's already been filed to try to stop the firings. I have no idea whether they'll try to follow through on their threat. Will Social Security and military retirement paychecks go out during a shutdown? They're supposed to. What is the biggest cog in the wheel that will break first with the government shutdown? I would say those counting on WIC, which is a program to help low-income mothers. I think that's the one most in jeopardy, followed by SNAP. Okay, So that looks like it. And now you have a little more information, a little more context, and having the right information will make all the difference. Y'all have a good day.